Right? Okay. So just to start off our panel, obviously this is the healthcare panel, so what do you think is one major problem that is afflicting U.S. healthcare right now?
There's a lot. There are many.
Pick one.
But pick one. Give me another hour. But I think the largest that we need to address is the cost of prescription drugs. So the U.S., the total amount of money that the U.S. spends on healthcare every year has grown like clockwork, 3 times the rate of inflation since the 1950s. That made a small dip in after the ACA passage, now going up twice the rate of inflation, so progress. Now the issue behind that is a number of different things. One, about 3% of the public takes up roughly 70% of US healthcare costs. So the very sick are very expensive. And oftentimes the very sick are underinsured. They require heavily medicated regimens that are very expensive. And the federal government has no way at all to influence the pricing structure of prescription drugs, at all. We can look into it, we can nudge nicely, but we can't negotiate, we can't leverage, we can't ask for certain pricing structures or transparency, we can't ask for a certain return based on research. We literally can do nothing. Prescription drugs, the wild, wild west.
Is that for constitutional reasons, or is that because no one's tried?
There's a constitutional argument, but it's mostly because there's no law. Congress regulates insurance. In the ACA, there's an 80-20 rule that requires that 80% of your premiums have to be spent on your health care or else you get a rebate. That's led to like close to $1 billion in rebates here in PA. So it regulates insurance, does not regulate prescription drugs. It regulates the safety of prescription drugs. The distribution process from when a compound is created in a lab to when it hops into your body is very regulated. It's very strict, and the FDA is without a doubt the gold standard in the entire world. When it comes to the pricing, there's no power. Congress has no power, HHS has no power. That's just the way it is. And so there's a number of reasons why drugs go up. Drugs go up because research and development, R&D, is incredibly expensive for these drugs. We have miracle working pills for cancer, for autoimmune diseases, for chronic care issues, amazing pills, but they're very expensive on the front end. And a lot of pharmaceutical companies use that as their leverage and as their excuse to keep increasing their costs. I'm sure you're all familiar with Martin Shkreli, right? That guy like a year ago, whatever, completely like exemplifies everything that's wrong with the pharmaceutical industry, because he's like this pharma bro, right? So he's like, let's raise the price like 500% because we can, and he can. Let's raise the cost on EpiPens, which is of course a medical device, 200%, 300% because we can. It's completely ethical. It's completely legal. It doesn't violate any statute. It doesn't violate any ethics agreement, both on the state or federal level at all. Is it wrong? 100%. But it's not illegal. And that's the challenge, is balancing the need to invest in R&D, but also it needs to be affordable. A lot of the reason that premiums and deductibles have gone up in insurance plans is because some insurance companies do have prescription drug benefits, right? And as prescription drugs get more expensive, so thus the care that pays for them gets more expensive. So until we tackle prescription drugs, we can keep subsidizing premiums up the wazoo. We can put a ceiling on deductibles, but prescription drugs are a major issue. There are a couple different ways to think about reforming that. We'll get to that a little bit later, but I don't want to completely hijack Michael's time. So prescription drug costs.
Well, this is most of his time. This is really healthcare. I've just been fit into here. So I'm going to say ditto. And then after I say ditto, I'm going to talk about like gun violence and how, you know, it's an issue with the pricing of healthcare.
So off my answer.
Right. So healthcare is extremely expensive. When talking about gun violence, we spend like $800 billion a year on gun violence. And we spend like $700 a person per year per American citizen. So that's more than like Medicaid. You'll hear him go into like Medicaid and Medicaid expansion. I don't know too much about that, but I know that my issue is costing more than Medicaid, and that's not cool because I want my grandma around. So, but yeah, we spend tons of money on gun violence in terms of healthcare. It's a public health issue. We believe it's a public health epidemic and crisis. We don't get too much money for research, GVR, that's gun violence research. We don't get too much money for that. So I guess funding, but earlier I did say that like free healthcare, the fact that healthcare isn't free is an issue, and I hear a lot of people say that, and he corrected me, and that's important that we are like correct on the issues when talking, and especially talking to other people as Democrats, talking to conservatives or talking to constituents or anybody. Like he said, there's no such thing as free healthcare. So I thought that would be like I feel like everybody should have healthcare. Everybody should be insured without, having to pay, but that's just unrealistic. So I don't want to.
It depends, right? I mean, you tee me up on that, but it depends on how you define it.
Right.
Right. So Medicare is not free, but it is a quasi single payer system. But anytime you're a wage worker, it comes right out of your paycheck every month. I pay for Medicare, but I'm not on Medicare. The VA is actually a true single payer system, in that from the care side to the prescription drug side to the palliative care side, all of it is in one place, and it's the VA. It's paid out from one account. Now, we all love single payer, right? As Democrats, like you probably all hear, most of you like it. Okay, thank God. And I'm one of you that doesn't. It's kind of want to just walk through comparatively, like ACA, single payer, where we are, if that's helpful. There are creatures outside.
He's Chinese New Year already?
That was very alarming.